Alright guys, thanks for joining me today. So today's class is actually a little unprepared, I'm sorry. I am kind of rushing to get ready for work at the same time as doing the class, but today's class is on the Havamal. There are different versions of the Havamal. The important thing to remember when reading any version of the Havamal is that these are translated towards whatever time frame they're in. So this one contains the Havamal translated through Bellows. Bellows' translation is very, very flowy, Shakespearean, so to speak. Whereas the Wanderer's Havamal is more of a direct to English translation, where the point is getting across, but it's not meant to be in a flowy, poetic nature outside of what it really is. And then, of course, you've also got the Cowboys Havamal, which is another work of Jackson Crawford, which, in his translation of the Havamal, he puts forth that the similarities between some of the practices within the Havamal are very similar to the way, like a Southern hospitality treats you, And that's essentially what the Havamal is. The Havamal is a lesson in how to be, if that makes sense. And what I mean by a lesson in how to be is, it's not written law that says you have to do things this way and be this way or you're not going to be a good person, but it is a good guide, a good starting point where it gives you lessons throughout as to what kind of actions one should take in certain situations, or how one should treat others, or how to treat ourselves, things like that. It's a guide. It tells us, that we shouldn't go around not knowing anything and talking. It tells us that we shouldn't stay home, because if we stay home, no one will think we're wise. No one will think better of us. We will know nothing if we stay home. It tells us things like, don't eat too much. Even cattle knows when it's time to stop eating. And it tells us things like, don't be afraid to drink, but don't drink don't overdo it. So there are a lot of lessons within the Havamal that everyone should learn. So when you hear people quoting stanzas from the Havamal, it's always best to have read it. It should be one of the first things that any heathen reads, just so that they have an understanding of what other heathens might expect of them. We tend to think of what we should read and what we should read as we need to know the stories, we need to know this. And yes, we do. We need to know the stories, but the stories are mostly passed down by word of mouth. There are books that you can read, like Neil Gaiman's, but those kind of lessons, the mythologies and stuff, those are stories that have been told over and over and over again. So it's a lot easier to find that kind of information. The Havamal is like a text that tells you what's expected of you, how to be a decent human being. Again, some of it needs to be taken with a grain of salt because of the times, but it's still ours. It's still a heathen guide, and there are still a lot of stanzas in there that we need to know as humans, especially if you plan on trying to call anybody out on what they know or what they're misinformed on. So knowing the stanzas, you don't have to know them by heart, but knowing them, having read them, knowing that if you have a concern or trouble, and you need guidance, that you can go and read the Havamal and find something that could relate. That's what the Havamal is. The Havamal was Odin telling his story, telling how people should act, and it's something we need more of. So when it comes to the Havamal, though, there are many versions, many versions of the Havamal. Most people are going to have the Bellows translation because it's readily available. It's showy. A lot of people like the way it reads. Like, take for instance, a man shall not boast of his keenness of mind, but keep it close in his heart. To the silent and wise does ill come seldom, when he goes as a guest to a house. For a faster friend one never finds than wisdom tried and true. I mean, it's showy. It's a showy stanza. That's stanza number 6. Here, let me pull up the Cowboys Havamal version, because that's the one that's open up on my computer right now. So I don't want to hear it. All right, so now that ain't to say that you ought to be showy about your learning. Don't say too much, and you'll say more of the right things. Which is the exact same thing that was just saying. Now, if we go back even further, let's say we go to the beginning of the Wanderer's Havamal, and we look at the Havamal in the translation from Jackson Crawford. I keep closing this out, I'm sorry. So for that one, give me a sec to find it. Let's see how far. Oh, 42, not too bad. Still got a few pages to scroll back, but pretty close. Ish. That's why I like the Kindle, because I can just scroll to it. Alright, so here we go. A wise man is not showy about his wisdom. He guards it carefully. He is silent when he comes to a stranger's home. Harm seldom befalls the watchful man. For you can never have a more faithful friend than a good supply of wisdom. Now notice that translation is a lot more direct and to the point, whereas the Billows translation, as I read it, was way more showy, more, check this out, this is great, like, listen to this. Like, it's more Shakespearean, as they say. And this gives us differences when we talk of the Havamal. So I find that it is actually rather helpful to listen to everyone else, to read the different versions of the Havamal, and to know. That way, when someone comes up to you, and just like anything else that I've been teaching and been saying to people, is everybody's information is going to be slightly different because there's different authors that write everything, and we do not have a centralized, single, uniform place to go for that. So because of that, unless you speak Old Icelandic, and then you could just read it straight from there. But within the community, within the bounds of what we know, it is very important to know that there are more than one versions of the Havamal. So when somebody reads one and you go, that's not how it's said, that sounds, no. Just remember, they could be reading from a different one. Ask them which stanza they're reading, and ask them, or which stanza they're referring to, and ask them where they got their translation. There are a lot of reasons for heathens to fight. Whether or not it's the same book or we know the same thing is not one of them. You get what I'm saying? We have way more important things to be doing than trying to fight over such little stuff. So I know today's short, and I'm sorry about that. I did want mostly for this class to be how the Havamals are different and which ones we tend to refer to within us here at the Ravens Banner. We tend to refer to the Wanderer's Havamal a lot because it is a more direct translation to the English language and is a lot more easily understood. But that's not to say that you shouldn't read any of the other ones. So I wanted that to be brought out. I want people to be able to read and go, oh, look at this. This is great. This Havamal says it this way. And as you read the 3 different versions, or more, you'll notice that your grasp of what is being said differs for each one, but it makes the whole thing clearer. So, yes, the Wanderer's Havamal is definitely the best one in my opinion, because I do like the fact that when it's someone who's learning and this is their beginning, that it's something they can refer to and still, like, there's the Old Norse, and then there's the English, and then there's the Cowboys. So you could go back and you could kind of figure out what was being said, and I like that. For anybody who has questions, remember my DMs are always open. If you do need, or you do have a question and you just kind of you don't want to ask yet, you want to wait, because remember, this is the first class of the month, so the second and third, and then the TikTok question and answer one. So this but do join us again next week. Next week we'll see what we end up discussing. But this week the Havamal, and I do want to leave y'all with a little bit of homework. Whichever one you find, go to your local library, see if you can find a copy of the Havamal. If you can find a copy of the Havamal, I want you to take that copy of the Havamal, and I want you to read 4 stanzas. And out of those 4 stanzas, I want you to post them within the Ravens Banners Education channel and comment on which version it came from, who the current author is for the translation that you have, and what you take from it. What is the most important? I did something similar to this in my Facebook group not too long ago. But if you did do the Facebook group one and you are now doing the classroom one, this is a different exercise, so make sure you don't repeat the same one that you did in the Facebook group. Other than that, guys, it has been a pleasure. Have a good day, and hopefully next week I'll be able to see some of you live.